زنتو مقتوى أقوى باك على أربع متردو كون النت شاوعي مراف
Chapter spent. Basic laws of dialectical materialism. Dialectical materialism is the recognition of the contradictory, mutually exclusive, opposite tendencies in all phenomena and processes of nature. That is, in all phenomena and processes of nature, there are diametrically opposite forces or tendencies, and they are at clash or conflict, and this continues until a solution is reached. This alone furnishes the key to the self-movement of everything in existence. It alone furnishes the key to the leaps, to the break in continuity, to the transformation into the opposite, to the destruction of the old and the emergence of the new. In its proper meaning, dialectics is the study of the contradiction within the very essence of things. Briefly, dialectical materialism is laws of movement and motions of nature, the material world, the social world, and social ideas including particular findings and phenomena. 1. Law of transformation of quantitative to qualitative change. The authors of the fundamentals of Marxist-Leninist philosophy write dialectics, the most complete, comprehensive, and profound theory of development, is the heart and soul of Marxism-Leninism, its theoretical foundation. The universal laws of dialectics reveal the essential features of any developing phenomena, no matter to what field of activity it may belong. Dialectical materialism does not treat the nature or universe as stable or immobile. The concept of development lies in this notion. There is a continuous struggle between the opposite forces, and this struggle. Dialectical materialism further states that the change or evolution from lower to higher, from quantitative to qualitative, is never slow or gradual or smooth. It is sudden or abrupt. The real development of society envisages such a transformation. In the process of the universal basic laws of dialectics, the transformation energy of motion or movement laws, the objective dialectical laws of reality, the conserving and converting energy laws of development, the positive and negative laws of attraction are actively and dialectically at work to making changes and new development of the natural or social realities. The totality of properties indicating a thing's dimensions or magnitude is called its quantity. The totalities of properties that make a particular thing what it is called its quality. Dialectical materialism is not content with asserting that everything develops. The development or transformation is from quantity to quality. Now let us explain what is meant by quantitative and qualitative change. The first basic law of dialectical materialism is that the transformation of change may be quantitative or qualitative. All change has a quantitative aspect. That is, there may be a decrease or increase of the thing. But quantitative change, decrease or increase, cannot go indefinitely. It has its limitations. After a certain point, the quantitative change may turn into a qualitative change. When the water is being heated, it becomes hotter and hotter, and after some time the water is converted into vapor. This conversion of water into vapor is a qualitative change. Similarly, when the water is cooled and the temperature is brought down to the freezing point, the water becomes ice. The water is converted into ice, but both are not the same. Quantitative changes occur constantly and gradually. What about qualitative change? Qualitative changes in a thing are a result of accumulated quantitative changes in it. So quantitative and qualitative changes in a thing are, in a sense, a matter of stages. After a particular stage, quantitative change does not occur. Again, qualitative change assumes the form of leaps. There is a break or discontinuity which is absent in quantitative change. Leap is a form of development that occurs much quicker than continual development. Leap form of development is characterized by intensity. It is really a breakthrough. Quantitative change is gradual, qualitative change is abrupt. Let us summarize what we have just now said about the transformation of quantitative change to qualitative change. The law states that there is an interconnection and interaction between the quantitative and qualitative aspects of an object, thanks to which small, at first imperceptible, quantitative changes, accumulating gradually, sooner or later upset the proportion of that object and evoke the fundamental qualitative changes, which take place in the form of leaps, and whose occurrence depends on the nature of the objects in question and the conditions of their development in diverse forms. Knowledge of this law is vital to the understanding of development. It provides a guideline for examining and studying phenomena as the unity of their qualitative and quantitative aspects, for seeing the complex interconnections and interactions of these aspects, and the changes in the relationships between them. The concept of quantitative-qualitative change from science and applied it to society is important to be known. With the rapid growth of industrial capitalism, wealth in the form of money is accumulated in the hands of a few, and the number of propertyless proletariat begins to rise, and this proceeds unabated. When enough people have proletarianized to make capitalism mature, quantitative change gives rise to qualitative change. 2. Law of unity and struggles of opposites. Dialectical materialism defines opposites and contradictions in the following words: aspects in which changes move in opposite directions and which have opposite trends of functioning and development are called opposites, while the interaction of these aspects constitutes a contradiction. Every phenomenon is characterized by certain opposites and contradictions. This is the property of the phenomenon. For example, in capitalist society, there are two antagonistic classes, bourgeoisie and proletariat. The interests, objectives, and attitudes of these two classes are diametrically opposite, but they exist side by side, and this is due to the interdependence and interconnection and interpenetration of opposites. The opposites have different aspects of functioning and development and have different directions of change. But in spite of this, the opposites do not eliminate each other. They coexist in an unbreakable unity and interdependence. This is an interesting characteristic of all opposites. Let us illustrate the point. In all class societies, dialectical materialism has stated that there are mainly two classes, the proletariats and the bourgeoisie or capitalists. There are conflicts and contradictions, and in spite of these, both the classes exist side by side, and this coexistence is inevitable. One cannot exist without the other. But a situation arrives when the coexistence becomes absolutely impossible, and this finally leads to revolution or class struggle. It has been claimed by the dialectical materialism philosophers that after the revolution, the proletarian class will establish its supremacy and create a classless society, which is called communism. Whether a communist society will bring about an end to contradiction is a debatable issue. But Marx and Engels have explained the matter from the standpoint of historical materialism. The law of dialectics states that the struggle of opposites cannot be underestimated. Rather, it is the motive force of social development. Lenin once said, "Development is the struggle of opposites." This development or motion is self-development or self-motion. That is, the development resulting from the struggle of opposites is not caused by external forces. This motion is quite relevant to dialectical materialism. This principle of dialectics has its own laws of motion. This is to be carefully remembered. The contradictions are not immobile or immutable. Once they have arisen, they develop and pass through definite stages. For the disappearance and replacement of contradictions, two conditions are to be fulfilled. One is contradictions must be fully revealed, and the other is they must be fully developed. When these two conditions are fulfilled, a situation for the leap will emerge. The old phenomenon will disappear and will be replaced by a new which will be qualitatively higher or better than the earlier. There are two stages of this development. First, a contradiction will unfold itself, and then it will be resolved. The contradiction first appears in the form of difference. Then this deepens into manifest contradiction. In order to maximize profit, the capitalist develops his productive system. Wealth in the form of money is concentrated in the hands of the few. Workers are more and more proletarianized. Contradictions deepen. Ultimately, demand is raised for the replacement of private property by the socialist property. When is such a demand made? The contradictions will arrive at a critical stage, and the struggle between the opposites will reach the ultimate point. This is the stage of resolution of contradictions. Dialectical materialism attaches a good deal of importance to the resolution of contradictions. To explain the law of struggle of opposites here is an example. A cord will break when excessive load is put upon it. The qualitative change takes place as a result of the opposition set up between the tensile strength of the cord and the pull of the load. Another example is when spring wheat is transformed into winter wheat. This is the result of the opposition between the plant's conservatism and the changing conditions of growth and development to which it is subjected. At a certain point, the influence of the latter overcomes the former. The internal content of the process of development, the internal content of the transformation of quantitative changes into qualitative changes, consists in the struggle of opposites. 3. The law of the negation of negation. Negation is an inevitable and logical element of development. A very powerful precondition of social development is the negation of previous existence. Now the question is, what is negation? Philosophy has defined it in the following way. In ordinary consciousness, the concept of negation is associated with the word no is to negate or reject something. However, dialectical materialism looks at the concept from a different angle. Negation is an important element of progress, so it has a deeper connotation. According to the philosophers, negation in dialectics does not mean simply saying no, declaring that something does not exist, or destroying in the same way one likes. Dialectical negation is objective. It is the negation of one qualitative state and the formation of a new one. It stems from the development of the internal contradictions of a phenomenon and results from the struggle between internal opposite forces and tendencies. It is a connecting link between lower and higher. Dialectical negation is an important factor in progress or development. This is a feature of dialectical negation. Another feature is it combines old and new. That is, it is a connection between the two. The negation of the old force by the new removes the obstacle on the way of development. Once development appears, the new force does not stand disconnected from the old force. In this way, a chain of connecting continues to exist. The negation carries with it the potentialities of new force. Otherwise, the negation is meaningless. It performs the function because it has the ability to create something new. Lenin wrote, not empty negation, not futile negation, not skeptical negation, vacillation, and doubt is characteristic and essential in dialectics, which undoubtedly contains the elements of negation, and indeed, as its most important element, no, but negation as a movement of development retaining the positive. The law of negation is a law whose operation conditions the connection and continuity between that which is negated and that which negates. For this reason, dialectical negation is not naked, needless negation, rejecting all previous development, but the condition of development that retains and preserves in itself all progressive content of previous stages, repeats at a higher level certain features of initial stages, and has in general a progressive and ascending character. Chapter 8. Power of dialectical understanding. Tools of understanding, ideology, philosophy, and politics. The idea of a tool that can be made from another tool, and that is itself a tool-making tool, lies at the heart of this book. My immediate concern is the phenomenon that theorists have called ideology, but my larger subject is human cultural understanding. I believe that the study of ideology must be dissolved into this larger concern. We must break down what previous thinkers have called ideology into distinct and analyzable mechanisms. We must replace the study of ideology with the study of diverse ideological effects produced by human thought, effects that together produce the phenomenon called ideology. At the same time, we must expand the concept of ideology by absorbing it into the more general study of cultural understanding. So, we must proceed in a dual movement, dividing ideology into its variegated mechanisms, and viewing these mechanisms as special cases of the ordinary process and operations of human thought. The metaphor of the tool-making tool unites two gestures. The study of ideology is the study of tools of human understanding produced in, by, and through human culture. To understand ideology, we must understand the tools of human understanding, with respect to both their advantages and their deficiencies, their intended and their unintended consequences, their ability to empower us, and their ability to exercise power over us. Tools of understanding. Ideology, philosophy, and politics as main tools of understanding. Ideology. Ideology is a tool for understanding. Ideology is a system of concepts and views that serves to make sense of the world while obscuring the social interests that are expressed therein, and by its completeness and relative internal consistency, tends to form a closed system and maintain itself in the face of contradictory or inconsistent experience. Ideology emerges out of a society's mode of production. Marx's approach to ideology was set forth in his theory of base and superstructure. The superstructure of society, the realm of ideology, grows out of the base, the realm of production, to reflect the interests of the ruling class and justify the status quo that keeps them in power. However, the relationship between base and superstructure is dialectical in nature, meaning that each affects the other equally, and that a change in one necessitates a change in the other. This belief formed the basis for the theory of revolution. It is believed that once workers developed a class consciousness and became aware of their exploited position relative to the powerful class of factory owners or financiers, in other words, when they experienced a fundamental shift in ideology, they would then act on that ideology by organizing and demanding a change in the social, economic, and political structures of society. The Italian activist Antonio Gramsci offered a more developed theory of ideology to help explain why the revolution did not occur. Gramsci, offering his theory of cultural hegemony, reasoned that dominant ideology had a strong hold on consciousness and society. The theory focused on the central role played by the social institution of education in spreading the dominant ideology and maintaining the power of the ruling class. Educational institutions teach ideas, beliefs, values, and even identities that reflect the interests of the ruling class and produce compliant and obedient members of society that serve the interests of that class. This type of rule is called cultural hegemony. The dominant ideology is the ideology that supports capitalism, by which the dominant high-class group achieves so much in terms of success and wealth, while others achieve so little. Within the logic of this ideology, these ideas, values, and assumptions work to justify a reality in which a very small class of people holds most of the authority within corporations, firms, and financial institutions. These beliefs also justify a reality in which the vast majority of people are simply workers within the system. The ideologies of capitalism reflect the dominant ideology in capitalist America. There are in fact other ideologies that challenge them and the status quo they represent. The radical labor movement, for example, offers an alternative ideology. The capitalist system is fundamentally unequal, and those who have amassed the greatest wealth are not necessarily deserving of it. This competing ideology asserts that the power structure is controlled by the ruling class and is designed to impoverish the majority for the benefit of a privileged minority. Labor radicals throughout history have fought for new laws and public policies that would redistribute wealth and promote equality and justice. As ideology is one of the main tools of understanding, it is the lens through which a person views the world. Within the field of sociology, ideology is broadly understood to refer to the sum total of a person's values, beliefs, assumptions, and expectations. Ideology exists within society, within groups, and between people. It shapes our thoughts, actions, and interactions, along with what happens in society at large. Ideology is a fundamental concept in sociology. Sociologists study it because it plays such a powerful role in shaping how society is organized and how it functions. Ideology is directly related to the social structure, economic system of production, and political structure. It both emerges out of these things and shapes them. Ideology versus particular ideologies. Often, when people use the word ideology, they are referring to a particular ideology rather than the concept itself. Within sociology, much attention is paid to what is known as the dominant ideology, or the particular ideology that is most common and strongest in a given society. However, the concept of ideology itself is actually general in nature and not tied to one particular way of thinking. In this sense, sociologists define ideology as a person's worldview and recognize that there are various and competing ideologies operating in a society at any given time, some more dominant than others. Ultimately, ideology determines how we make sense of things. It provides an ordered view of the world, our place in it, and our relationship with others. As such, it is deeply important to the human experience, and typically something that people cling to and defend, whether or not they are conscious of doing so. And, as ideology emerges out of the social structure and social order, it is generally expressive of the social interests that are supported by both. So, ideology is a system of concepts and views which serves to make sense of the world while obscuring the social interests that are expressed therein, and by its completeness and relative internal consistency, tends to form a closed system and maintain itself in the face of contradictory or inconsistent experience. Philosophy. Philosophy is the main tool of understanding. Why study philosophy? What is philosophy, and why should I study it? Philosophy comes from Greek words meaning love of wisdom. Philosophy uses the tools of logic and reason to analyze the ways in which humans experience the world. It teaches critical thinking, close reading, clear writing, and logical analysis. It uses these to understand the language we use to describe the world and our place within it. Different areas of philosophy are distinguished by the questions they ask. Do our senses accurately describe reality? What makes wrong actions wrong? How should we live? These are philosophical questions, and philosophy teaches the ways in which we might begin to answer them. Students who learn philosophy get a great many benefits from doing so. The tools taught by philosophy are of great use in further education and in employment. Despite the seemingly abstract nature of the questions philosophers ask, the tools philosophy teaches tend to be highly sought after by employers. Philosophy students learn how to write clearly and to read closely with a critical eye. They are taught to spot bad reasoning and how to avoid it in their writing and in their work. The most important reason to study philosophy is that it is of enormous and enduring interest. All of us have to answer, for ourselves, the questions asked by philosophers. Philosophy is important, but it is also enormously enjoyable. Politics as a tool of understanding. Politics is an essential part of our everyday lives and may influence everything in our world. Of course, the word politics can mean different things to different people. If you are like most people, you may think that politics is all about who runs the country or who gets elected president. But politics is not just about what happens in your country/state or at campaign rallies. It is also about how power and influence are used to shape our communities and how we interact with each other every day. What is politics? The word politics comes from the Greek word polis, which means city-state or community. The city-states were independent political entities with their own laws and customs. Politics is the study of governing and how political power is used. It is also the process of making decisions, influencing those decisions, and making them. Politics is a way of making decisions about how power is used in society. Politicians use their ideas about society's needs when they are trying to get elected to office so they can pass laws that help meet those needs better than anyone else could do without being elected first. We need politicians because sometimes laws are not enough, and sometimes they are too much. But in any case, the job of politicians is not just to legislate. Politics is one of the most important aspects of our lives. It may affect every decision we make and has a huge impact on our daily lives. But why is it so important? It ensures that everyone in society is treated fairly and equally. The importance of equal rights for all members of a community cannot be underestimated. The concept of democracy is based on the idea that all people are equal citizens who must be treated equally before the law. Equality is so fundamental to modern civilization that it's one of the basic values of human beings. Indeed, many would argue that these ideas are inseparable from our identity as a species. Politics helps achieve this goal by allowing groups of people who share common interests to organize into formal political organizations called parties or caucuses, Hague, Democrats and Republicans. These organizations then work together to achieve their goals and avoid conflict with other groups through compromise and negotiation. This creates a system wherein no interest group feels threatened by another that it resorts to violence or revolution against its rivals. As a society, we need to feel safe and secure. We need to know that if something bad happens, there are people who will protect us and keep us safe from harm. Politics is important because it makes sure that this happens. Politicians make sure that laws are passed that protect people from being attacked or harmed in some way, even if they have done nothing wrong. There are also laws against discrimination based on gender, race, or sexual orientation so that no one feels that they are being persecuted or discriminated against for no reason. Politics also keeps the peace between countries by making sure that countries do not unnecessarily, or at least not without good reason, wage wars against each other. This keeps everyone safe because there is less danger of bombs falling on your house or being shot by someone who doesn't care if you're an innocent civilian or not. It provides the common good and ensures that everyone in society has access to the resources they need for their well-being. The common good benefits everyone in society, and it is about more than personal gain. It means that everyone has access to opportunities and resources that enable them to live fulfilling lives, free from poverty or oppression. The public interest is also part of the common good, but this term refers more to safety, security, healthcare, education, and the shared needs of an entire population. In a perfect world, everyone would have the same opportunities and it would not be fair for some to have more than others. But in reality, not everyone gets the same opportunities and it is disproportionately fair for others to have more. Politics helps to create a better future. It creates a better future for ourselves, our children, and future generations. Politics is about making decisions that affect our lives. It is about building a country where everyone has a chance to succeed. And it is about helping the people who need us most to thrive in their communities. It is also important now, more than ever, because politics will determine how your community progresses, whether there are good jobs available, and how safe you feel walking down the street at night, whether you can afford health care when you need it most. What kind of education system exists in your area? Public schools versus charter schools. Whether your drinking water is safe and so on. Politics is about compromise. Compromise is an important part of politics and the way our government works. Compromise is important because it allows us to work together to find solutions that are fair for everyone, even if we do not agree with everyone. And when we work together for the common good, we can solve problems that would be impossible to solve alone. But compromise is not always easy, fair, or popular, and sometimes it's not even the best or right solution. To find common ground between several people with different ideas, compromises have to be made, which means giving up some things that are important to you to move forward with other things that mean more, or at least as much to you. Politics is about transparency. Politics is about transparency, being open and honest about your actions and decisions. This can be difficult, especially when it comes to sensitive issues or people's emotions. But to make good decisions, it is important to understand the totality of the circumstances. When we talk about transparency in politics, we mean that everyone involved, from voters to elected officials, can see what goes on behind the scenes of government decision-making. Transparency allows citizens to better understand how their representatives act on their behalf. They also learn who was responsible for certain outcomes when they're dissatisfied with those outcomes, which is often the case. Respect the rights of others and treat them with dignity and equality. This means that politicians take into account all stakeholders in society when making policy decisions, including those who have been oppressed or marginalized in the past. It also means that these decisions are guided by respect for human life and dignity, by an understanding that no one should be treated less favorably because of race or gender identity, by compassion for those who suffer from poverty or hardship. by considering how policies will affect future generations, by respect for the law enforcement officers who put their lives on the line every day to protect us all from criminals, by many other values that are important to the well-being of our society. People who don't understand politics sometimes think that politics is all about having power over other people and taking away their rights so they can get what you want at the expense of others. But that is not true. The person in a position of political power must be able to make decisions on behalf of all the people they represent, not just themselves or their group. This means that they must be ethical, honest, and trustworthy so that we can place our trust in them. To do that, they need to know what is going on in their constituency, what issues are affecting the lives of their constituents, and how best to address those issues. This knowledge helps them choose policies that benefit everyone, not just one person or group at the expense of another, or even themselves. It also means that politicians cannot act without considering how a decision will affect everyone else around, from voters to those directly affected by the proposed changes, before making decisions based solely on self-interest, which would undermine trust among constituents throughout society. With the help of politics, we can make our communities safe, clean places where all people have access to quality healthcare and education, as well as other basic needs like food, water, and shelter. So, politics is a powerful tool to bring about change. It can be used to bring about change that benefits the majority of people, but it can also be used to take away the rights of minority groups in harmful ways. The way you use politics depends on how you think about what needs to happen in your society or community. Politics teaches us to think critically. The process of critical thinking is one of the most valuable skills a politician can have. It involves looking at an issue from different perspectives, considering its features from all angles, and keeping an open mind about the problem. This process helps politicians make informed decisions when faced with issues for which there are no easy answers. How to deal with climate change. Learning to think critically also helps you be more understanding of people who disagree with your opinion on an issue, and that is one of the most important aspects of being a successful politician. We tend to think of politics as something that always leads to conflict, but it is also a constructive way for people from different backgrounds, experiences, and opinions to learn from each other. Political debates allow us to understand each other on a deeper level by considering all points of view. When we engage in political debates with others who do not share our point of view, we are forced to listen carefully so that we can make our arguments as effective as possible. As we practice this skill over time, we get better at having civil conversations despite disagreements. Politics makes you a better citizen. Politics is the process by which citizens participate in the decision-making of their local, state, or federal government. In this way, you will learn how laws are created, how they are enforced, and what your role is in these processes. As you learn more about politics, you can help your community make better decisions that affect your daily life. You can learn about the issues that affect your community, crime rates, taxes, environmental regulations, and other factors that can affect every aspect of your daily life. You can also learn about the candidates running for office who have different ideas on how to solve these issues. In this way, you may help organize people with similar ideas and goals so they can work together to achieve their goals. In other words, politics is a way of governing yourself or making decisions together with other people who live near you. Politics and ideology. Politics and ideology are forces that do not merely pertain to governance, but often cast a vision about the nature of reality, individuals, and society. As such, political ideologies can have a religious power, shaping the people that adhere to them. In Political Visions and Illusions, it is examined the fundamental political ideologies of our era, unpacking and evaluating the worldview assumptions and stories they tell about public life and the direction of history. It is suggested that understanding the idols of ideology is key to understanding faith and politics in our contemporary moment. As for ideologies, faith and politics are rooted in a kind of secular faith. Liberalism, for example, rests on faith in the liberty of the individual. Nationalism makes a god of the nation. Democracy places its faith in the popular will. Socialism makes a god of the economic class, or, in the case of Marxism, in a providential history based on concrete material forces. Liberalism is not wrong to esteem individual liberty, of course. The fact that ancient peoples worshipped idols made of wood and stone does not make the created materials of wood and stone evil. Individual liberty is a very good thing, but it can become an idol when every other consideration, especially anything related to the community, is made subservient to it. Chapter
Magandang aliw, yan kanyan na.